Scientists estimate that there are between 100 billion and 400 billion stars in our galaxy alone, and between 100 billion and 200 billion galaxies in the observable universe. About 1 in 6 of these stars has an Earth-sized planet. This means that in the known universe, the number of planets potentially capable of sustaining life as we know it is around 6 to the 21st power. The chances of us being alone in the universe are exceedingly small. Is there other life out there? If so, have they visited the Earth in the past? Are they visiting us now? How would we know?
Tomorrow is another day and wish it would arrive.
How often have you looked up into the night sky and wondered if there were other people staring back at you? In this vast universe, how could we possibly be alone? One of the first people to ponder this question was Dominican monk and philosopher Giordano Bruno. He's known for the theory that the stars we see at night are distant suns surrounded by their own planets, just as our own planet orbits our own sun. In Bruno's time, it was a radical idea to claim that the Earth orbits the sun. Back then, humankind couldn't imagine a universe without us at the center of it. Bruno proposed that the stars were distant suns surrounded by their own planets, and he raised the possibility that these planets might foster life of their own. This is a philosophical position known as cosmic pluralism. He also insisted that the universe was infinite and could have no center. Therefore, humankind could not be at the center of the universe. Bruno's hypothesis that all the stars in the night sky also had their own planets capable of sustaining life was even more radical for the time. So much so that he was sentenced to death during the Inquisition and burned at the stake for heresy in 1600. In 1995, Bruno was vindicated when the first extrasolar planet was discovered. In that year, NASA's Kepler Space Telescope science team discovered Pegasi b, also called Dimidium, orbiting a star very much like our own sun. This discovery confirmed that planets could exist elsewhere in the universe. As astronomical research into exoplanets continues, scientists now estimate, based on current data, that about 1 in 6 stars has a rocky planet like Earth. This means that there could be between 30 to 50 billion Earth-like planets in our galaxy alone. What we don't know is what fraction of these Earth-like planets would be capable of sustaining life. Dr. Sarah Seeger is an astrophysicist and planetary scientist at MIT. Her life's work and main research goal is to discover other Earth-like planets that sustain life. This would be done theoretically by detecting biosignature gases like oxygen and methane through spectrographic analysis of the planet's atmosphere. Unfortunately, the technology for this doesn't currently exist, so for now we have no sure way of knowing how many planets out there might contain life. An early attempt to answer this question was formulated by Dr. Francis Drake in 1961. This formula, known as the Drake equation, considers factors such as the fraction of stars with habitable planets, the number of those planets that develop a habitable ecosystem, and the number of those planets that develop intelligent life capable of interstellar communication. When all of these variables are known, we should be able to estimate the number of intelligent civilizations out there capable of communicating with us. The problem with the Drake equation is that many of the variables remain unknown. To date, Earth is the only planet we know of capable of sustaining life, so until the science advances sufficiently to increase the accuracy of the variables, the question, "Are we alone?" must wait for an answer. On the other hand, astronomers and cosmologists estimate that there are more stars in the visible universe than there are grains of sand on every beach on Earth. If that's the case, then our galaxy should be teeming with life. So where is everybody? Or as Carl Sagan once put it, the universe is a pretty big place. If it's just us, it seems like an awful waste of space. The Italian-American physicist Enrico Fermi asked the same question. If the number of planets capable of sustaining life is nearly infinite, why haven't we made contact with other intelligent life forms? Over the years, many scientists and philosophers have attempted to answer the question posed in the Fermi paradox. Maybe intelligent life is extremely rare, or maybe the lifetime of such intelligent civilizations capable of communicating with us is too short to establish two-way communications. Or maybe they do exist, but for some reason we see no evidence of their existence. Or maybe they don't try to communicate with us for the same reason we don't try to communicate with termites. We're just not interesting enough or intelligent enough as a species to merit their consideration. There's an almost impossibly huge number of potential planets out there capable of sustaining life. Given the sheer number of potentially habitable planets, the probability of other intelligent civilizations seems ridiculously high. Since life on Earth emerged fairly quickly after the planet cooled enough to start supporting life forms, it would seem to suggest that the conditions necessary for life may be common in the universe. They're certainly common on our own planet. We found life ranging from high-temperature thermal vents deep beneath the ocean to the frozen tundra of Antarctica. Given the frequency of life on Earth and the presence of organic compounds scattered throughout the Milky Way, the potential for intelligent life seems almost a given. Even if a small fraction of the intelligent extraterrestrial civilizations in the galaxy developed advanced communication technology and the ability for interstellar communication or travel, we should expect evidence of their presence in some detectable way. The universe is nearly 14 billion years old, and many stars and planets in the universe, and even in our own galaxy, are much older than our own solar system. If intelligent life arises fairly frequently, as the Drake equation would seem to suggest, then we might reasonably expect that some civilizations would have had a head start of millions or even billions of years compared to life on Earth. If this is the case, we might wonder why we haven't encountered or observed any advanced extraterrestrial civilizations, or at least received some sort of communication from them. This raises the question of why we haven't detected any of the signs of intelligent extraterrestrial life, given the seemingly vast number of opportunities for it to arise. Setting aside for the moment the possibility that maybe extraterrestrial life has already contacted us and may even be living among us, there have been multiple proposed solutions to the Fermi paradox. One of these solutions is the rare Earth hypothesis, which suggests that the conditions necessary for complex life are exceptionally rare. Earth may possess unique characteristics that make it easy for intelligent life here to emerge, but just because such conditions are ideal here doesn't necessarily mean that similar conditions will emerge on other planets throughout the galaxy. Another potential solution to the Fermi paradox is something called the zoo hypothesis. This one suggests that advanced extraterrestrial civilizations are aware of Earth, but for some reason choose not to make their presence known. This could be out of a desire to observe the development of our civilization without interfering or corrupting it. Fans of the many iterations of the science fiction show Star Trek may be familiar with the Prime Directive. This fictional Prime Directive reflects a philosophy of non-interference and respect for the autonomy of other civilizations. It acknowledges the potential harm that well-intentioned interference by outside civilizations could have on the natural development and the cultural integrity of less advanced societies. Although the Prime Directive is fictional, it could reflect a real-world principle shared by any potential intelligent extraterrestrial civilizations. Maybe they just don't want to contact us because they respect our right to autonomy. The zoo hypothesis also explains why, if aliens are actually visiting us, they don't land on the front lawn of the United Nations and ask to speak to our leaders. Such a blatant and direct interference could be a violation of any hypothetical alien Prime Directive, so they prefer instead to share their message with a chosen few. The next potential solution to the Fermi paradox is that our technology may be too limited to detect their presence. We rely heavily on communication through the electromagnetic spectrum, using frequencies like radio waves and microwaves. While this technology is perfectly fine for communicating on Earth, it's not a very efficient way to communicate over interstellar distances. Signals in the electromagnetic spectrum move at the speed of light, or roughly 186,000 miles per second. While this might seem like a mind-numbingly fast speed, When dealing with the astronomical distances, it's virtually a snail's pace. A signal sent at light speed from Earth to Neptune, which is the farthest planet from us in our own solar system, would take about 4 hours to arrive. And that's just within our own local solar system. Proxima Centauri is the star closest to the Earth. It's in our celestial backyard, so to speak. Even so, it would take over 4 years for a signal traveling at light speed to reach it. Having a two-way conversation with a hypothetical civilization on that planet would take over 8 years. 4 years for the signal to reach them, then another 4 years waiting for a reply. Any spacefaring civilization capable of interstellar travel may have found a better way to communicate over the vast distances involved. They may not send radio signals to us for the same reason that we don't build airplanes with steam-powered engines. They may have found better and more efficient ways to communicate. If that is the case, then it may be that they are communicating with us, but we haven't yet developed technologies sufficient to the purpose of intercepting and decoding their signals. Imagine receiving a television signal in the days before television was invented. How would you be able to watch it if you had no TV capable of decoding the transmission? Another potential solution to the Fermi paradox is self-destruction. This idea proposes that intelligent civilizations tend to self-destruct through technological, environmental, or social means. This would limit their ability to communicate or explore space. If you blow yourself up, it's hard to communicate with other civilizations. This particular theory is aided by some views on evolution and the emergence of intelligence. Evolution favors characteristics and traits that enhance the survival of organisms. The more fit an organism is for its environment, the more likely it is to survive. In environments where there's not a lot of competition for resources, then there's not much need for intelligence to emerge. It doesn't take a lot of intelligence to survive in a paradise where all the needs of your species are met. You don't have to think a whole lot to survive in the Garden of Eden. According to this theory, intelligence only emerges when it becomes necessary to fight for survival. The more you have to think about how to survive in a given environment, the more evolution favors the survival of the being capable of intelligent thought. This means that intelligence is only likely to emerge in environments with high conflict and high competition for resources. An intelligent species that evolved in such an environment would naturally be more prone to conflict, and a species more prone to conflict would be a species more likely to blow itself up. This leads us to the final and most terrifying solution to Fermi's paradox, the dark forest hypothesis. This theory was formulated by the astronomer and author David Brin in 1983. It theorizes that there are many alien civilizations throughout the universe, but they're all hostile. Because of this hostility, all the intelligent civilizations choose to remain silent, so they won't be detected by any other hostile alien civilizations with superior technology to their own. They fear being destroyed by another undetected, hostile alien civilization. The dark forest hypothesis assumes that any civilization intelligent enough to develop interstellar travel would view any other intelligent civilization as a potential or even an inevitable threat, and would thus endeavor to conquer any other spacefaring society that makes itself known. Per this hypothesis, any intelligent civilization would have figured this out, so the electromagnetic spectrum would be relatively quiet because of the fear of detection. From this perspective, the universe is the dark forest, filled with armed hunters stalking each other. The dark forest is a potential result of the idea that intelligence only evolves when there's enough competition for survival resources in a given environment to require its emergence. If that hypothesis is true, then it would seem that the dark forest is the inevitable consequence. Of course, all potential solutions to the Fermi paradox assume that extraterrestrial life hasn't already contacted us. It could be that the UFO contactees are right, and the aliens have been communicating with us all along. If that's the case, then the Fermi paradox is no paradox at all, and we're wrong to assume that we haven't been contacted. What are some factors that govern the potential for extraterrestrial life? The first step in understanding the possibility of life beyond Earth involves identifying habitable environments on other planets. When I was a child, there were only 9 known planets in the entire universe, and of course that was before Pluto got downgraded, and our solar system only contained 8 planets. I was 32 years old when the existence of the first extrasolar planet was confirmed in 1992. There are now 5,566 confirmed exoplanets in 4,140 planetary systems, with 942 systems having more than one known planet. Out of all of those planets, we've been able to discover about 55 Earth-like planets. That means that only about 1 in 100 of the planets we've discovered so far are even potentially capable of sustaining life as we know it. That number may seem small, but it could only be an artifact of the technology we use to discover such planets. But even if it is accurate, we've only looked at a small fraction of the number of stars that are actually out there to observe. Astronomers have made remarkable progress in discovering exoplanets. The habitable zone, or the Goldilocks zone, so-called because the conditions are just right for life as we know it, is a crucial step. The Kepler Space Telescope and the James Webb Space Telescope have significantly expanded our ability to detect and to study exoplanets, bringing us closer to identifying potentially habitable worlds. Of course, all this presupposes that intelligent life in the universe will have evolved in ways similar to the ways that life evolved on Earth. It is possible that there are other forms of intelligent life out there that could evolve on gas giants or even in deep space. Life on Earth is also based on carbon chemistry, but there's no reason why alternative biochemistries might not exist on other planets. Life on other planets could be based on silicon instead of carbon, for example. Furthermore, the discovery of liquid water on other bodies in our own solar system, such as Jupiter's moon Europa, has fueled speculation that Earth might not be the only place in our own solar system where life evolved. Astrobiology is a fairly new field that combines elements of astronomy, biology, and chemistry. This field plays a major role in the quest to understand extraterrestrial life. Advanced telescopes and spectrometers will allow astrobiologists to analyze the atmospheres of distant exoplanets and search for signs of life. Advancements in space exploration technology have enabled the deployment of robotic missions to explore our own solar system. Probes like NASA's Mars rovers and the upcoming Europa Clipper mission scheduled for October of 2024 are equipped with instruments designed to search for signs of past or present extraterrestrial life. These missions will provide valuable data that will help us to further determine the potential habitability of other celestial bodies. They will also contribute to our understanding of conditions necessary for life to thrive. Of course, microbes are a very different thing from intelligent life, but for intelligent life to evolve, microbes are a necessary first step. And the more we learn, the more we'll be able to fill in the more variables on the Drake equation and answer the question of whether or not we're alone in the universe. But in a universe with almost infinite potential for life, it would seem the odds should be in our favor if we're looking for intelligent aliens out there. Then again, maybe there's another alternative. Maybe they've already made contact. The first known use of the term flying saucer was when the Chicago Sun newspaper covered a sighting by private pilot Kenneth Arnold. On June 24, 1947, Arnold claimed to have seen 9 unidentified flying objects near Mount Rainier in Washington state. He described their motion as similar to that of saucers being skipped across a pond, and estimated their speed at a minimum of 1,200 miles per hour. Since that time, UFOs and flying saucers have been sighted all over the world. While the U in UFO stands for unidentified, that hasn't stopped people from identifying these objects as visitors from another world, manned by extraterrestrials. On September 19, 1961, Barney and Betty Hill became the first known UFO abductees while driving home from Canada to New Hampshire. That night, on the drive home, Barney stopped the car in the middle of the road to study a strange light that had been spotted in the night sky. The next thing they both remember is waking up in their car about 35 miles away from the previous location and several hours later. The missing time and the anxiety it caused them to seek out the services of a psychiatrist. Under hypnosis, it was revealed that they had been abducted by aliens and subjected to medical exams before being released to continue their trip home. While under hypnosis, Barney Hill sketched out one of the captors. This drawing was the first known depiction of an alien gray. Since that time, millions of people claim to have been abducted by alien grays and subjected to medical experimentation. Either some of these abductees were lying, or these aliens have been extremely busy. In 1968, Eric von Daniken created a firestorm with the publication of his book, Chariots of the Gods. In it, he suggested that much of the technology and religion of our ancient ancestors was given to them by visitors from other worlds. He claims that wonders such as the pyramids and Stonehenge couldn't have been built by our primitive ancestors because they lacked the knowledge and the technology for such feats of engineering. Some have accused von Daniken of a sort of modernistic chauvinism by saying that just because von Daniken couldn't figure out how Stonehenge was built, that doesn't mean our ancestors couldn't. On the website The Forgotten Technology, there are multiple videos showing Wallace Wallington moving 10-ton stones by himself using primitive technologies like levers and pulleys. So it's certainly possible that our ancestors could have been responsible for things like Stonehenge and the pyramids. On the other hand, there are things like the Casso artifact, which seems to be a spark plug that was embedded in rock millions of years old, or the Antikythera mechanism, which is a computer built in around 100 BC. That would seem to suggest that in the past we may have been tutored by someone with superior technology. Given the fact that the Earth has been around for several billion years, and given the billions of planets out there capable of supporting life, the odds are at least one civilization capable of interstellar travel could have visited us in the past. So what should we believe about aliens? Have they visited us? Are they visiting us now? If there are no aliens, why do so many people claim to have witnessed UFOs? Why do so many people claim to have had close encounters or have even been abducted by aliens? I don't claim to know all the answers, but I would like to share one story from my own past. In the early 1970s, I was a middle school student in the sleepy little lakeside town of Guntersville, Alabama. When I was about 11 years old, I discovered magic tricks in the world of science fiction at about the same time. My group of friends and I built model rockets and magic props together. One day after launching a model rocket that blew up on re-entry, we started talking about spaceships crashing to the Earth. This naturally led to the conversation about Roswell. Being a natural bunch of pranksters and tricksters, we soon began wondering how hard it would be to fake UFOs. Back then, even kids in middle school had access to things like gunpowder and other chemicals, so we had plenty of experience with making our own fireworks. We also had plenty of time learning the illusions of the great magicians like Houdini, Blackwell, and James Randi, so we combined these skills and created our own flying saucers. From about 1971 to 1973, we staged various UFO incidents. An old bicycle wheel covered in aluminum foil, illuminated from within by a flashlight, and suspended from wire over a highway, became our first UFO. We were underwhelmed with the results, so we soon learned to create makeshift balloons by suspending garbage bags over cans of Sterno. White garbage bags launched into the sky in this manner were particularly effective at creating a believable UFO, as the flame illuminated the balloon from within, giving it an eerie, yellowish glow. One night, one of our crew captured a turtle and tied a waterproof flashlight to it before releasing it into the lake. We watched it swim underwater, dragging the flashlight along behind it, and this particular prank gave us our first lesson in mob psychology. There was a local AM radio station that aired a weekly call-in show, and we had unleashed our underwater turtle a couple of hours before the show began. By the end of the show, the callers who had witnessed our prank had transformed our turtle-powered flashlight into a glowing 30-foot spear that had crashed into the lake. It was our first lesson in how quickly a story can become exaggerated to mythic proportions. The culmination of our UFO pranking came with the creation of the tinfoil alien. After seeing how the folks who had called into the radio show turned our underwater flashlight into a giant glowing orb, we decided to see how far we could stretch credibility before people realized that they were being pranked. So that was how our crew of merry pranksters decided to create a space alien, but to do it in the most comical way possible. At the age of 13, one member of our gang was already nearly 6 feet tall, so he was elected to be the monster from outer space. Let's just call him Ken. Back then, during the heyday of the space program, silver mylar blankets were a new item marketed as space blankets. We made Ken a costume from a couple of these space blankets. A toy plastic space helmet covered with aluminum foil topped the suit. And just to make the outfit as absurd as possible, Ken created an antenna out of twisted aluminum foil and stuck it to the top of the helmet. The finishing touch was a breathing tube that was actually a vacuum cleaner hose stolen from Ken's mother's vacuum cleaner and attached to the suit with silver duct tape. We covered any remaining gaps in Ken's spacesuit with tinfoil and silver duct tape, and then we went out in search of victims for our prank. When we arrived in a remote field, we launched a UFO that we had created out of a helium-filled mylar balloon. This balloon was covered in battery-powered LEDs and attached to a spool of twine. We simulated a landing in the field by slowly reeling in the twine until the balloon was on the ground. Once our UFO had landed, Ken got out of the van and began walking around in the field near the balloon. He walked around in the field for maybe 20 or 30 minutes when a vehicle finally showed up. And of course, as fate would have it, the vehicle was manned by the chief of police, who had been called by a woman screaming into the telephone about aliens invading her farm. The police chief managed to snap 3 or 4 Polaroids before our spaceman ran. The chief later reported that the space alien had run faster than any human being possibly could. While that's probably a bit of an exaggeration, it wasn't much of one, because when Ken saw the policeman coming in his direction, he took off. We all hid in the woods until the police officer left, then came back to the van. Once we had calmed down, we laughed about the cops showing up, and on the ride home we speculated about the police officer having a good laugh at the crazy kids with their hokey Halloween costume. But a few days later we were surprised to see a picture of Ken in his full alien regalia on the front page of a local newspaper. The police chief had taken our spaceman seriously, and apparently so had the local news editor who ran the story. In the article that accompanied the picture, they had interviewed the police chief, who told reporters that he had contacted the Air Force and that they had agreed to send someone to investigate. When we read that particular bit of news, that's when we decided to end our pranking. The thought of being investigated by the Air Force was a bit too much to bear for a bunch of teenagers. What did fascinate us about this experience is that we tried to make the most comical alien we could, and still people wanted to believe that it was a genuine visitor from outer space. So I know from personal experience how easy it is to fool people, especially if they're willing to be fooled. But on the other hand, I've had personal experiences that I can't explain as easily as all of that either. But that's a story for another time and another episode. So are there aliens out there? Ultimately, there's only 2 possibilities. Either there is life out there among the stars, or there is not. If there are no aliens, then we're the only planet in the entire universe that has evolved intelligent life forms. On the other hand, if there is other intelligent life out there, it's just a matter of time till we meet them. Either of these possibilities is awe-inspiring. Cosmologists estimate that black holes will dominate our universe a decillion years into the future. That's 10 to the 33rd power years from now, ushering in what they call the black hole era. What this means is that even though our universe is an estimated 14 billion years old, on the cosmological scale, we're still in our infancy. In the game of life, someone had to be first. That is, given that we're very early in the history of our own universe, there has to be a beginning somewhere. What if that beginning is us? What if we're the first life in our universe? What if our humble planet on the outer edge of the Milky Way is the place where all life in the universe begins? How would that change our perspective on the way we treat each other? How would that change the way we see ourselves and life on our planet? Could it be that we are the aliens and our destiny is to conquer the stars? Time will tell.